Hey guys, on today's episode, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Chris Shannara. Chris is an extremely talented graphic designer. He works currently full time for Telegraph Creative while also doing freelance on the side. Chris's work I've seen over the past few years and have always been just a really big fan. I was really excited just to have the chance to sit down and talk with him about his work, some of his big projects, as well as just his experience and story in general. I'm really excited to share this conversation with you today. Check it out. So,
Cool.
Chris Shannara, thank you so much for joining me
Yeah,
on Creating Critters podcast today. I'm
appreciate it.
excited to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here. I appreciate the invite. Yeah, it's good to meet people in the community, and yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
Well, tell me this: the Shannara name in Alabama, you can't really go too far without seeing it, hearing it,
you. Yeah,
getting sort of bombarded with it at times driving down I-65, right?
yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
tell me, what is your relation to Alexander Shannara, if any at all?
Alex is like a third cousin. So
Yeah.
his mom and dad grew up with where the same area overseas where my grandmother grew up. So like a lot of them grew up in the same city, which is Ramallah, which is in the West Bank.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he blew up here. I mean, I have a huge family. I mean, I have 27 first cousins alone.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and there's Shannars with H's at the end, and there's Shannars without H's at the end, and we just have a giant family. And yeah, it has its perks, and it's awesome with the with the culture we have. But yeah, Alex has just been like killing it, and obviously you get that question all the time, like, are you related to
I
him?
can only imagine.
Of
Yeah.
course. But
Now,
yeah, I have a giant family, man. They do all types of things. So
what
mhm.
about the dentist in Montevallo? Are you related,
Yeah,
closer related to him?
Bobby. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Bobby. Yeah.
Hmm. Cousin. Yep.
Yeah,
Another
another
cousin.
cousin.
Yep.
Well, he's one man in the video space. He
Yeah.
his social media content. He seems to have taken a page out of Alexander Shannar's playbook and like go big or go home kind of deal.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
he gets pretty elaborate. I think one of them was. Oh gosh, he was like Willy Wonka, and all the dental
Mhm.
hygienists were like the
Oh
Oompa
yeah, I remember.
Loompas.
Yeah. He got really creative with that for a while, but yeah, he's doing a great job out there too. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it seems like he's pouring into the Montevallo community because I think he owns, at least in part, a lot of like this newer, redeveloped area
Yeah, I
of
believe
Montevallo.
it's
I
like
don't know if do I.
I haven't been out there, but I know of it. I know he has like an ice cream shop and a lot of things around like the same area. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I haven't talked
yeah.
to him in a while. But yeah.
Well, it's a cool space. All right, that's enough about your family. I was
All
just
right.
curious.
All good.
I didn't. I figured the Shannara name has to be connected in the Birmingham area.
Oh yeah.
I just imagine so.
Yeah. You can't get away from it. I mean, I have cousins and uncles. They all, coming from overseas, you know, a lot of them didn't have that education, so a lot of them just started from the ground up. They started their own businesses, whether it was a grocery store or whatever they could do to make some money. And a lot of them now have established businesses, real estate, gyms, carpet companies. Some of my closest cousins. So growing up through that, it's very motivating, and it helped a lot with like work ethic and like ethics when it comes to work and being on top of your game. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Was there an extra level of sort of pressure to exceed or excel in whatever arena you went into, or was there more of like this just general support and encouragement?
Um, a little bit of both. There's a lot of pressure. They just want you to have security. Like my whole life, like I remember my dad was like, "Is there benefits? Do you have benefits? Do you have this? Do you have that?" And they just want to make sure that you're taking care of for your future. Family's a really big thing for them. At a specific age, they want you to get married, have kids. That's what they expect. Um, uh, but it's a really good culture in that they want the best for you, but they can be hard on you. But like looking back on it, I appreciate it, because if I didn't have that work ethic, that my dad gave me, that my uncles gave me, I don't know, you know, what I'd be doing right now, or how I would be. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
um, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, in general, I think we all sort of look back and think, man, my mom or my dad was really hard at times. But then also, whenever, like now, me as a parent, I'm like, I
yeah,
get it. You look at your kids and you're like, you got to get out there. You got to at least get out of my house at some point.
for sure. Oh my gosh, yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Hmm.
Well, like I said, I just wanted to sort of ask that question and sort of see what the ties were. But let's go ahead and get started in talking about you specifically. So tell me just who is Chris Shannara? Tell me a little bit of your origin story, so to speak.
All right. So I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Um, when I got out of high school, I wanted to go to this art school, but it was just too expensive. And I loved my family down in the South, and I really wanted to get to know them better. And I was like, you know what, let me try and go to school up there or down there, and see how it works out. So after high school, I moved to Birmingham, and I stayed with my grandmother. I went to school for a little bit. It didn't really pan out, financial wise, otherwise, but it didn't pan out. I started working, just regular jobs here and there. I worked with my cousins, some family, and at a certain point, I got to, I was getting older, and I was like, man, my dream was to be a designer, and I was like, if I'm not gonna go back to school, like I have to do something here. So um, and on my lunch at work, I would go back to my cousin's house, and I got Illustrator, and I just started working in it. And then I would do it on my lunch the next day, and I just got better and better, and just started learning it on my own. So eventually, a local print shop, um, I had a chat with the owner, and I was like, man, just like I'm looking just for a shot, just to get in the business. And he gave me a shot, and I ended up working there for about 2 years. Learned a lot. I had a lot of it I had to learn on my own, because it was like an old school place. They weren't into the really like art aspect of design. It was more of like the print realm, and so I was basically just learning the basics. And then from there, I went to a bigger print shop, which was Pete's Print in Hoover, and a buddy of mine owns that. So shout out to Pete over there. Um, and I ended up, meeting a good friend of mine there who is now the owner, and he taught me so much, like taught me more about Photoshop, about InDesign, how to set up files for print, really just the basics. And like they told me from the beginning, like we know where you want to go, like this is a good stepping stone, like we'll help get you there, if you want to get there, which I thought was like so cool. So I ended up staying there for about 2.5 years, and I started chit chatting with an over a social media company, and it was in the Innovation Depot. And it took about, I want to say like 3 or 4 months of like back and forth, and finally I was like, I got an interview, and I went in for an interview. Didn't hear back for a while. A couple months went by. You know, I contacted the guy again, like, hey, can we talk again? Ended up talking again. They gave me a job, and that was my first agency experience. And I worked with a lot of younger people than me. I was older at the time. I'm still older. um, and like I was new to that part of the business. Coming from the print world, like I've never been to the agency world, and I've never seen what was out there in regards to design, and it just blew my mind. So all these younger guys just taught me so much. I mean, like taught me about like the business, about what's going on, what's trendy, about branding, social media. Like I was new to a lot of it. So if I didn't have that, I mean, it just, I think back of like every single, I look at the print shop, like design boot camp. So I
Yeah.
tell people like, if you really want to learn design and you didn't go to school, even if you did go to school, work at a print shop for a year and you'll learn because it's just nonstop. So you're like forced to learn and forced to get it. And plus from
I,
the print side, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I was about to say, I would imagine in print shops, like you're not usually given high quality, ready to go designs.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, you're given stuff that people are like, "Hey, this is what I've got," and it's some JPEG that's in like super small
Oh
resolution
yeah,
that
yeah.
now you've got to recreate. So it really is like every, probably on a daily basis, you're either creating original content, recreating really bad like resolution kind of imagery to be able to put it onto whatever they're needing it put on.
Oh man. I'm glad you said that because like you spend 60% of your time fixing files and
Yeah.
trying to get better files and releasing clipping masks and having all these layers, and it's just it was looking back, like knowing what I know now, like I have an easy fix for a lot of it.
Right.
But like looking back now, I was like, man, and it also shows like how new I was. You know how you look back at your work from like 2 years ago and you're like, what? But it also is like it humbles you. You're just like, man, I came a long way.
Yeah.
And it's always been the biggest thing for me. It's like, at a certain point, I sacrificed like a lot of my personal life because I was like had that goal. I was like, this is going to be a harder road than if I were to go to school. So I just had to keep at it every single day. And luckily, I had people that were willing to sit with me and help me out. Like my first creative director, Hank, I mean, he's still a big influence on me. And I mean, he really inspired a lot of like the style I have. He was the one that told me to share my work all the time, even if you don't feel like it's the best, just like keep sharing it. And honestly, like if he didn't tell me that, like that's how I got every opportunity I got, sharing it,
Yeah.
you know? So
Social media is such a powerful tool now for us as creatives because it allows you, especially whenever you're doing things that maybe it's spec work,
yeah,
but now it becomes a portfolio builder. It becomes a demonstration of your abilities, even though probably for you it was like, well, let me figure out if I even have this ability or let me develop this ability. And definitely, man, your Instagram, like I've scrolled through this thing for a while now,
yeah,
over the past few years. And man, your designs are incredible. I love the way that you uh, blend images together. The fact that so many of these images, whenever you first see it, where you're dropping it in, and your YouTube channel on your reels, I see a lot of that. But like those initial images don't match at all, and
uh,
by the end, man, the way you change up the lighting, the way you add those like texture overlays,
yeah.
the color matching, I mean, it really does bring things together that uh, initially at least, I mean, don't at all match. And I get that that's sort of the art of this kind
Yeah,
of work, but I
yeah.
think you do it really well.
Thank you.
So props to you on that. It's sort of hard to think of you being like this guy that doesn't know what he's doing yet,
Yeah,
because my time of following you, you've always seemed to know really well what you're doing.
I
So
appreciate that.
can you give me a little bit of a time frame when it was that you were really working at that print shop and honing your skills?
Like
Like how
how
long ago?
how
Yeah,
long?
like what
Oh
years
man,
were those?
I want to say it was about 6 years ago.
Okay.
6 years ago.
To me, man, it blows my mind. So many of these people that I'm
Yeah,
talking to, they're like, "Oh yeah, so in 2019 or in 2020, it's
mhm,
like that's when it started." And then it blows my mind because I'm
yeah,
like, it that's not long enough ago for you
Yeah.
to be as good as you are is what I feel about so many people. And I would say the same thing with you, man. It's like this for you to be delivering the kind of work that I see you delivering on
Mhm.
like a regular basis, for you to have just started relatively, back in you said 2018.
Yeah, it was about, I mean, it was like 2014 when I started. So
Yeah.
I've been in the business technically for like 10 plus years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but like the first 2 years, I don't know if I would count. I didn't know what I was doing.
Hey man,
Honestly,
we all got to start somewhere.
no.
Let me say, I love this image, man. And
Thank
you
right.
stated that that it got labeled as made with AI, which I thought was really funny. It seems like it's such a that's such a difficult thing right now to be dealing with.
Yeah,
Not really sure what it's going to mean for designers. Not really
yeah,
sure what it's going to mean for if you do anything with Photoshop nowadays.
yeah.
Um, what is it like for you to have something labeled made with AI? What is first of all, how do you see that really impacting you as an artist? But then also, how does that impact sort of the industry in general? You think?
Um, at first, I mean, it's still scary, because you don't want something taking your job or a computer taking your job. But now I feel like, like when computers came out, I'm sure everybody was going crazy, like it's gonna take my job. So like
Right.
in a way, I'm just trying to keep up, and learn, because like on that, like I leverage, like I use like the generative fill on
Yeah. Yeah.
Photoshop.
Generative fill. Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
generative fill, and I use like different AI components. I mean, to help, with my design. So I'm trying to keep up with it, but in the back of my head, it's still scary. But unfortunately, that's what the future is, and just got to go along with it and just keep learning it because that's what people are going to want to use. So
Have
it
Go
might
ahead.
speed
Sorry.
up your time, and I'm trying to look at the positive end. It
Yeah.
could speed up my time and help me, make my designs better. Where I was spending, an hour and a half on something that takes me 5 minutes now, I could spend more time on the composition and how to get it out the door. Because as you know, like at agencies, everything's, quick. So,
Yeah. Well,
mhm.
I do think. Well, let me put it this way. I heard it said in a presentation not too long ago that um, people were. It was with school PR people because that's sort of the world that I work in, and this lady was saying that people's jobs, like they weren't going to be replaced by AI at their
Right.
job, but
Uh-huh.
what they're going to be replaced with is somebody that knows how to use AI
Yeah.
at their job. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're going to be replaced by somebody that can do the same job utilizing the tools of AI, and they're going to be able to do it better, faster, more efficient. Um, and I would say that like it's a unique position that creatives are in right now because I do think AI is sort of growing and advancing
Yeah.
and but it's a matter of like what you were just saying, keeping up with it
Yeah.
and realizing, okay, how can I leverage this new tool for
Hmm.
my benefit and for
Yep.
the quality of my work and the efficiency of my work.
Yeah. I mean, it helps me out. I'm not gonna lie. Like some of the photos, if I need to add extra space, like it's right there for me, So just got to keep up with it, and try to learn as much as you can. Hopefully, it doesn't take over, but I don't know if I'll be here when that happens.
I get that. I get that.
You know?
HAL 2.0 is probably coming at some
Yeah.
point, but yeah, man, I thought this image was so great,
Thank
and
you.
a lot of the stuff you do with sports is obviously
Yeah.
eye catching and powerful and really well put together.
Yeah.
But let's get back to your story a little bit. I want to talk to you about just sort of your creative journey. Um, how did you really learn those skills? I mean, you talked about some of these mentors that you had in your life. What other way were you finding? I mean, did you do online tutorials? Did you go to YouTube University a lot?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like I'm glad you got to that. I was just about to tell you, Skillshare
Oh yeah.
helped me out major. Obviously YouTube, but honestly, like just working, like the people I worked with. I mean, just taking the time to just help me, even when it was like I could tell it was annoying. They took the time to help me, and they still help me. You know, all the mentors I've had, um, even to this day, like, and I think that's been the biggest thing, and I really appreciate the time they took, and like even like you know some of them were like 10 years younger than me. You know what I mean? And
I totally get that.
helping
Every
them,
day I feel like
this
I'm learning
guy,
from.
like, is this guy gonna get it? I'm sure that was in their head. You know what I mean? Like, and not only that, like on Instagram, uh, there's some sports designers that are just incredible, and I'll shoot them DMs and be like, man, like I need help with this, and then you come to find out they're 18 years old. I'm like, this is insane,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like
I,
so much talent out there, but they're willing to help, and I mean, I DM anybody, if there's something I like, I'll shoot them a DM. Hopefully they answer. If they don't, you know, I know. But honestly, that's like for my oh things.
did
Okay,
you lose me?
sorry. No, there was a thing that popped up on the screen. Um, yeah, that's been the biggest help for me, honestly. Especially now, like when I was getting into the color matching and the compositing. Um, I I r- I wanted to get a lot better at it, but lost train of thought. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Um,
Can I bring up one of your
sorry about that.
images real quick? And I want to ask you about it. Um, this may be a decent ways down. Um, sorry,
Oh,
I
you're
should
good.
have I should have been thinking about this while you were just thinking. Okay, this one right here,
That
man.
thing caught me off.
Do what?
The thing that came up made my mind slip. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. But this image right here, man, I love the way that this was composited.
Yeah.
And I think like my coworker and I, we were one day looking at this, and my coworker's Cole Peavy, and Cole, I think, looked at this very image. He may have even messaged you about it at one point. I don't know, but he ended up tasking himself with like recreating this
Oh,
image,
did he? Oh,
and
that's
did
awesome.
so, he did a great job. But
Yeah.
man, out of that, we sort of found just this really deep respect for what you did here.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
It's a great composition or composite. And just again, man, the way that you bring together the colors and the layers, and I know like I feel like there's always a good amount of like texture that's sort of added to it
Yeah.
that sort of really unifies it. But for you, what is sort of that what would you call it? Almost like that special sauce that you put on your images that you feel like really finally brings it all together. Because I watch Cole sometimes
Yeah.
creating stuff like this, and initially you're like, man, that's not working,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not working, and then all of a sudden, boom, like one certain element is put on there, and it's like it works. It all
Yep.
feels uniform now. What is that for you? And maybe it's not always the same thing each time, but is there a collection of things that you're always like, when I get to that point, I
Yeah.
know it's going to come together?
Oh, yeah. Obviously with the composite, I put the pieces together first, and then I do the color matching, and then selective color is a big thing on Photoshop. So
Yeah.
that was one of the major things I use.
I
Curves,
haven't used that yet, but I've seen
fan-
it. Sort of
fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah. And I have these systems of color matching. So, like, they have the neutral filters in the Camera Raw filter, or not the Camera Raw filter, but it's in filters. It's called neutral filters, and um, there's a
I think
tool
I saw
to
you use that with this maybe.
yeah, there's a tool to color match the background. So if you have an image on top of it, it kind of it's called harmonization. So I use a little bit of that if it works properly. But then I have a couple systems that I've learned off YouTube to color match, and they've just been like great for me. And then now really it's just getting the highlights right, the curves right, the lighting right, and then once I get all that together, like you were saying, like the special sauce is the camera raw filter, and then I go in and I just mess with the textures, the clarity, the vibrance, the colors. I adjust the colors much, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of actions online, like sports design actions that if you merge your composition, you can turn it into a smart object and you can use those actions, but then you can go back to the camera raw filter and see all the settings they did in those actions. And that's really how I learned it. I was like looking at what they did. They adjusted this that way. There's actually a designer named Cole on Instagram. If you want to look him up, he really influenced me a lot. It's
What
literally
was
Cole.
it's just called Cole?
Cole on Instagram.
Okay.
Cole. Mm-hmm. Should be.
Yeah, right here, Jeff Cole.
He's a big influence on my work. If you want to check out that LeBron he did right there, with
This
the
one?
yeah the
Wait,
dunk, yeah,
this?
the one to
Oh,
the
the Duncan one.
other one, yeah.
Whew.
See that style?
Yeah.
He's incredible. I love his style. So he's been a big influence on my work. Yeah,
Yeah, everybody was comparing that at one point.
yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Well, that's cool.
So I basically just looked at his work and I try to recreate it, see what he does, see what works, see what doesn't. Um, but like stuff like that, that's like the lighting and all that.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I have trouble with, but I'm getting better at it. I'm working on it.
Man, yeah, looking at I would not classify you as having trouble with lighting. I mean,
I mean, I do like positioning and light sources and like that stuff's difficult. And a lot of the time, like for me in my head, it's not accurate, but for others, I guess for others that see it, they're like, yeah, this is pretty cool. But like, I still, I want it to be better. So, yeah,
I like it. Hey, that's where so many people, man, that I've talked with, it's like, yes, they're proud of what they're doing, but at the same time, they're not satisfied with like with being like reaching a level that they're content with. You
yeah,
know, it's like
yeah,
always aspiring to be better, to do better,
yeah.
to grow as an artist. So
Hmm.
that's cool, man. Well, like I said, I've got big respect for what you do,
Thanks.
um, and and I marvel at the idea that you're like, yeah, I still got to work on my lighting technique. You
I
know?
do, man. There's a lot to learn. I mean, the compositing is just like a big passion of mine. Like I really, Hank introduced me to it, and he did this like sneaker ad for Dick's Sporting Goods, I believe it was, and I just loved it so much. I started doing sneakers. That's how it started, and I got really hooked on that for a while, and that's how I got better at it. Was just doing like sneaker designs and sneaker ads and samples, kind of like that.
Yeah.
My old stuff, and that's what really like got me into the compositing world, and it just opened a whole new world to it, and that's what I ended up like. I post a lot like on my regular client work from the agency on my page,
Yeah.
but I love sharing my composites. Like it's like I keep the kind of world separate a little bit, but I share a lot of my client work in my stories as well. So I
Yeah.
need to share
So
more.
tell me a little bit about that. Like, tell me a little bit about, um, well, first of all, the stuff you're doing with sports. Is any of that stuff that you're getting compensated for, or is this more of like passion projects, or is it a
Um,
little bit of both?
Most are passion projects and just trying to get better. Um,
Yeah.
but I've gotten work out of it. Uh, I did some stuff for the Washington Commanders. I did. It was like a training camp poster. I did that. Did some stuff for like some local soccer teams. I took what's really been big is take, even if it's not sports, I'll take that style like what I did for Sloss Tech there.
Yeah.
Um,
I love
taking
that poster, man. That's
I
incredible.
appreciate it. Thank you. That was a big collaboration. But taking that style and being able to use it at work has been like awesome. It's been great. But I don't want to be stuck as that guy because I really love branding and I love doing social media work and I'm trying to learn. There's so many things you try to learn at once. I learned along the way, like just learn one thing at a time. Like I got overwhelmed by it. Like I want to learn how to do this, and I need to read this book on brand identity, and I need to do, and kind of overwhelmed myself. So now I'm just kind of like, you know, learn as you go. You know, stop comparing yourself. Everybody has a different style. You're your own person, just like in life. Like your style is your style. Like because you like somebody else's, you don't have to sit there and get upset with yourself like, oh man, I wish I was that good, or I wish I was as good. That's that might be his world. You can get better at it, but like everybody's their own person, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
and I was getting to like I was just like really hard on myself, especially like my mentor was like, man, he's so good. But then on the flip side, you got a younger designer that looks at you that's like, man, your work's it's really good, you know? So
Yeah.
you don't, I just try to look at it that way. Like everybody has their own thing and everybody's unique in their own way, you know? So,
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most difficult things with being a creative now is this idea of constantly comparing yourself to somebody else.
yes.
And social media, like we said earlier, is incredible for our field. It's also extremely painful for our own self like view and sort of our mental health at times
Gosh.
because yeah, so many times we're comparing ourselves to people that just have completely different life situation and sometimes those very people are comparing themselves to somebody else and they're
100%.
like in the exact same position.
Yes. Yes. And you just can't do that. Like, I know it's easier said than done, but like, as soon as I let that go, it seems like everything is kind of, not to say like, you have your good days and bad days. Like I have, I work my dream job. I love what I do. But do I have bad days? Do I have bad weeks? All the time, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes
Now,
stress.
so you do a lot of actual branding and do you do the logo design
I do.
also?
I do. I do. Mostly the visual identity. The strategy is done separate. So I don't technically do that part. But it's great to be involved in that because I get to learn more and that helps, the visual identity. Um, so yeah, that I mean, I would say, I mean, like 60% of my work is branding. hmm A
Yeah.
lot of it's social media posts. I do a little bit of animation, trying to get better. Um, I've been putting that off for a little bit. I need to get better at that. I've been wanting to get into photography, because of the compositing. I'm like, wouldn't it be nice if I could just use my own photos and
Yeah.
do my own photo? Because there's people out there that do compositing and they take their own photos of everything and then they build the composition. So and that'd be something cool to do in the future for sure.
Just having that more control, is that what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
wanting? Yeah.
yeah. Like they're taking pictures of themselves with certain lighting, and then taking a certain picture outside with certain lighting, and they're matching it up and combining it together. Um, there's a specific artist, I'd have to send him your way, that does that. He just put himself like sitting on top of a big book that he took like in the middle of a forest, and it's incredible what people do out there. You know,
Yeah, it's always one of those neat things. I mean, same thing in video. I feel like is you got two options always: is get it in camera or fix it in post kind of deal. And so I guess the same thing's true in compositing. Is how much compositing do you want to have to do versus how much can you get it already in the
yeah,
original image. So
hmm
I've seen guys that like this, and it may be the same guy, and I can't think of his name either, but I want to say he's from Europe somewhere. But anyway, he
Yeah.
does like these big floating orbs where
Yeah.
he'll hold it and the orb is giving the light.
I've seen that.
And then and then afterwards it sort of he composites like elements into it,
Yes.
but a lot of it is like a lot of at least the natural lighting and everything is right
Mhm.
there in the original image.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah. Neither one of us know his name though, so that's
I know. I can't like he does stuff with like I know he did one with like Mario stars, like stars from Mario.
yeah,
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
yeah.
So
And
yeah.
that's cool stuff. But I get it now, sort of what you're wanting to do. I mean, that makes sense why that would be. I mean, I could see Telegraph just as an agency being like, yeah, let's see how we can use that in future
Yeah.
projects. So
Yeah.
that's
They're very
that'd be a
supportive
cool
of
thing to do.
it. Mhm.
I look forward to seeing it.
Go for it. I mean, they let me, practice with their cameras and, and like, they're very supportive if it's something I want to learn more of, So,
Yeah. Well,
so
it's cool to know that your journey's definitely not over as a creative. You're growing, you're learning, you're expanding your skills. That's really cool. All right, let's talk about this, man.
getting started.
You're just getting started. Definitely. Let's talk about this. Is this your dog?
Yeah, man. That's
All
Debo.
right.
He's
What's
right in
his name?
front of me now. Debo.
Debo.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Well, I always feel like I've got to ask whenever I see a pet show up in their social media to a
Uh-oh.
degree. I'm like, okay, this we've got to talk about it. So tell me about Debo. How long have you had Debo? What kind of dog is Debo? Uh-oh. Did I lose you? I may have lost you, Chris. Oh no. Oh, there you are.
There we are. All right. I saw you go and I was like, uh-oh.
Well, that's what. As soon as I saw you freeze up, I was like, "Oh man, did we lose him?"
Here we go.
All right, so tell me, how long have you had Debo? Tell me what kind of dog Debo is. Tell me a little bit about Debo's character in general.
Man, I got him when I started designing, actually. So 2014, be 11 in November. Uh, he's an American Bull Pit mix, and I remember when I got him, he was sitting in the back of the crate, and there was all the other puppies in the front, and he was just staring at me, and I was like, I gotta get that one right there.
The
And
back row Baptist.
yeah, he's just the like real chill. Like I don't know how else to explain it. Like he's just like a sweet, chill dog. Looks scary, what's not.
Yeah, he does.
Some people, when they see him, they're like, "Oh my god," But the older he gets, the sweeter he gets. Like, right, he's asleep right now. So,
So they talk about dogs and their owners. I don't know which way it works, but they talk about over time that the dog takes on the characteristic of the owner or vice versa.
oh,
How do you see the two of y'all having some similarities at all?
I can see that. The same attitude. Like I have ear problems. He's got ear problems. So I can see that 100%. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I used to have a beagle that looked more like a basset hound because she was extremely overweight, and I always said I was like that's my dog. It's me in a dog form. Like she was lazy. She ate too much. It's like it was me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. That's so funny. And then like you
yeah,
got to drag him to get him up. Like I have to pull
and
him. Like, come on, man. He's like when he's passed out and he's comfortable, man. He doesn't want to get up. It's
and
hilarious.
you're the same way.
No, I'm not. I mean, obviously it takes me a little bit, these days, but getting up early. But like he's always just like, you know, nah, man, I'm not ready to get up. I'm like, I
Yeah,
am to
he
get up.
he seems like just by looking at him, he looks like the kind of dog if he doesn't want to move, you don't move him.
No, I have to pull him too. Like he used to be like 100 some pounds. Now I have him on like specific diet because of his skin and stuff. So he's like 80 pounds, maybe something like that.
He's a cool looking dog. I think a perfect
Yeah.
dog for a designer, man. I mean, he
Right.
looks like he was designed.
Yeah, he does. A lot. I mean, that's a lot of those. Like, he's my like photography subject. When I was trying to learn some photography, I would just
Yeah.
use. Yeah, there's some right there. Hmm.
Yeah, I saw. I think one of your compositing you did with
Yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw that on the YouTube channel. I think one of your reels.
Yeah, that was an older one. Yeah, yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
All right, so talking about your work, we've talked about it a good bit already. But what is sort of that? Uh, what are one of those elements that you found out about doing compositing that you're like, I don't know, maybe you were surprised by? Was there anything along the way, like in your journey, maybe even talking with these other creatives that you've DM'd over time? Was
Hmm.
there something that you were like I never even realized that or never thought about that?
As far as like learning it, or as
Yeah,
far as
learn
how it is.
well, learning it, or just like maybe like you were saying, just like how maybe a system to it that sort of shocked you, and maybe we've already touched on some of that stuff.
Okay. I didn't realize how big of a world it was. Like sports design. Like I'm not the like I love the Sixers. I like to watch UFC. I like combat sports, but I'm not like the biggest like sports fan in the world. You know, I like the Phillies. Um, but I don't know. I just got really hooked on it, and I didn't realize how big of a world it was. But I think it's what attracted me to it is the culture. So sports culture, hip hop culture, sneaker culture, something I grew up loving. Um, Even my own like my heritage, like being Palestinian. How I grew up and the things I was around, music I listened to. I think that's why I loved it so much, honestly, because I loved all those elements and I saw it within that world. If that makes sense, you know.
Yeah,
And it's just a style that I got hooked on, and I didn't realize how big it was. Because there's sports designers out there, like just like Cole, like he does stuff for Nike. That I mean, and it's huge, and a lot of those sports designers work for. They have specific jobs for sports teams to do those manipulations for their team social media. So if you look at the Dallas Mavericks, they have a completely different style. Like I'll look at some random basketball teams. I'll go on the Mavericks page. I'm like, man, this designer's got a really cool style. He's like all different. And then you go on the Sixers page, you got a completely different style. And then, it's all these different sports designer from all over. I mean, you got I've met some from like Australia, Canada, everywhere, you know?
do you feel like there's like real money opportunities in sports designer, or do you feel like it's
Hmm.
one of those things that is utilized a lot but not always compensated well?
I think there is, but a lot of it's just like a one off or like an element for maybe like, you can utilize it. So if they do a Nike campaign, they'll utilize that style within the campaign. So it's a nice thing to have, you know, um, that you're good at, to add that extra, whatever it is, to add, or, like we were talking about for Slostech, something like that. But there's there's guys that freelance for just MLB, NBA, and they make a good living at it.
Yeah.
There's a really good designer. He's all on Adobe Live all the time. I gotta remember his name. I'll send him your way.
Okay.
He just
I'll
does.
I'll put it in asterisk
Yeah, yeah.
on the video.
He just does sneakers, and they look so real. If I showed them to you, just like a large sneaker in the middle of like a street or somewhere, and yeah, that's all he does, and he just does freelance for New Balance, Nike. I think he does for Nike, but yeah, yeah.
I feel like sports is one of those things in video and graphics and photography I feel like a lot of times, there's definitely people in the industry that's making money and doing well with
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But then I also feel like there's a lot of people that are almost constantly aspiring, if that makes
yeah.
sense. It's
Mhm.
like I think in sports you can get sort of stuck in that trajectory of um, of just simply specking yourself out all the
Yeah,
time
yeah.
instead of really like grounding yourself in something. Does does your job, your full time job, I mean, do you see yourself as like, hey, that allows me to do this, or is it more of like the spec work that you're doing helps you grow into what you do with your full time job?
I feel like it allows me to do it. Um, I feel like I get the best of both worlds. Like on the outside, like I get to pick and choose the freelance I do because like back in the day, I would just take on anything just to make some money, you know.
Right? Yeah.
And looking back, it was like maybe I shouldn't have taken on everything because I didn't quite know what I was doing. But it was
Yeah.
good learning on how to deal with. I didn't realize at the time it was like how to deal with clients and how to deal with people, um, and learning business like that side of the business. I mean to go off, but it's. I think it helps me. I I think it helps me at work like in a major way, like having that having this on the side, um, and getting better at that. But like then I'm like all my time is consumed with branding, social media. So I get all that at work and I get to learn all that. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going in a circle here, but
No, no, I
I,
get it.
I get the best of both worlds, like
Yeah.
on both ends, and I get to take those skills. I mean, I got my job because of it, honestly.
Do you feel like you're like, have you ever, or maybe are you currently even like almost stretching yourself too thin? Do you ever rest, or are you constantly like, whenever you come home, do you feel like you're working side stuff, and then whenever you're at work, you're working your full time job? Like, do you feel like it? Because I know for me personally,
Overwhelming,
I've say that again.
like overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah, like just like I've been in that situation before where, and I think creatives, it's one of those things like, especially whenever your creativity resides in a computer that you can take anywhere with you,
Yep.
it's like you're never done working.
Yeah, you're always attached to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I would say in the last 3 years, I've taken it easy, like as far as like my home life and my personal life, because like 3 years ago was nonstop at work, at home, at work, at home, and now it's just I got I wouldn't say burned out, but it was like I just need that balance, and I need that. I just wasn't as motivated to do it anymore because it was like I worked really hard. I got here. I wanted to keep learning. Now I'm here. Take it easy for a little bit, Um, and it was just it got to be too much at one point. But also, it's like it's hard nowadays. You don't want to make extra money and. But I'm just pick and choosy about what I do now. Whereas like back in the day, I was just like, I'll take on this and I'll take on that. And I'll have it by this time, and then you got four things going on at work, and then you got to remember about this going on Saturday. It's like
Yeah.
it could be, how it is. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't with video. I mean, it's impressive, honestly, with the
I've
editing. I don't know how. Like, yeah, I have a
my
lot of respect for people that do video. Hmm.
my full-time job has definitely helped me bump my prices up because it's like, if I'm going to do something on the side freelance, it's got to be worth it for me,
Yeah,
because it's like, for me to leave my family on, or get home really late or leave out on a Saturday, like it's got to be financially beneficial. Otherwise, it's just not worth the loss of family time.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Especially you have a family, like it's more important. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Yeah.
all of this is great, but like the older I get, I'm like, family's like, you know, that's it,
Exactly.
in my
Yeah.
opinion. So
Yeah, definitely. All right,
yeah,
so tell me a little bit about your process. I would love to know. I mean, what's really cool is so much of your process, at least in your compositing stuff, it's literally right there on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You share in these shorts like some really cool, just like building of those elements and dropping those things in. But I'm curious to know, even before you ever put anything on a art board,
Mhm.
like what is your process for creating something? Like, does it usually start with, oh man, that's a really cool photo,
Mhm.
and then you start like from that original element, or is there something else that sort of dictates what the layout and look is going to be?
Really, at first, well, back in the day, I didn't have. I would just like, oh, I like that shoe. Let me see what I could do with it. But I didn't have a process then. I was just trying to learn. But now, um, I'll pick a subject. So that one was Sean O'Malley.
You talking
The
about
other,
this one?
that's Alex Pereira. He's a
Okay.
UFC champion. I was like, I want to do something with him. I really like him as a fighter, and like he's real. You know, he has this character to him called Poeton. Like those, I forgot the name of those stone heads. Like that's his logo. And I saw that image, and I was like,
Easter Island. That's
he's
Easter
yeah.
Island. Yeah.
But those his logo is like those because he's like always stone faced and like scary looking. Um, and that initially sparked the idea, and I found that background image, and then I looked up some Pereira. I tried to find the most high res version I could find, and then I put it together. I look at it first without adding anything to it, and to see if it's going to actually work, and then I'll go from there. And if I know it's weird to say, you might feel the same, but like when you feel something, like when you're creating something, like this is working, when you
Yeah.
have that feeling,
Yeah.
um, it just hits you. It's like, all right, this is going to work. Sometimes in the end, it might not work, like in regards to what you're working
You
on.
felt it initially, though.
Because with branding, you could have a killer idea and you start on it and you start working on it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't. This works as like a nice mark, but it doesn't work when it's like out in the world, when it's actually put in assets and on the website and all that. So it's the same regard here. It's like, is this going to work? And then I'll start feeling good about it. And nowadays, I just take my time. I'll do a few edits here, do a few edits the next day. Back in the day, I was always in a rush.
Hmm.
Now I'm like, why am I in a like to rush to post to all this nonsense? So now I take my time and I get it where I want it to be. I send it to myself. I look at it. I digest it for a couple days. Um, Another art director told me to do that because I would just post it right away. He's like, look at it and then go back and see how you can improve it. Um, yeah, that's really my process for that. Sometimes I'll sketch it out. Sometimes, like with the Sean O'Malley one, the one with the different cutouts of images, I saw that style. Yeah, that most recent one.
Yeah.
I saw that style and I was like, gosh, Sean O'Malley would be cool. He's got a fight coming up at the Sphere. Let me see what I could do. And I found a bunch. He has so many images from his last fight, and it worked. I had a lot of fun with it.
Well, I
Hmm.
love that extra punch you put at the end with sort of that like overall look. The
Yeah,
colors really
yeah, yeah.
popped. And again, like stuff like that's where it seems like this would have been cool without that, but that really brought it
Yeah,
together. I
yeah,
mean, it really made it look like one image instead
yeah.
of this composition of
Yep.
various images.
Hmm.
It,
Yep.
it probably helps in that case where you probably had all the photos were taken by probably a similar or the same artist or same
Yep.
photographer in the same location at the same time. But a lot of them are not that easy to match, I
Oh
would
no,
imagine.
no, not at all. Especially with the lighting and all that. I really just wanted to match his hair, as you could see there. So really
With
where I
the overall look, you
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And then the like I did the blood splatter, but like I wanted it to be pink because like his thing's pink.
yeah.
So yeah, it all came together.
I think that it looks cool. It's definitely, like I said, that last little touch, and I definitely see the matching of the colors.
Oh
It
yeah.
worked really well.
Mhm.
So with your brand stuff, what's sort of your process with that? Like I know that obviously you work with a team at Telegraph, and so whenever you're doing branding with them, it's obviously probably a collection
Oh
of
yeah.
voices and things. But what is your process once you get involved, and maybe where are you involved with that stuff at that point?
Okay. Well, obviously you have the discovery. Everybody's involved in that, and then the strategy comes along. I get to know the strategy, read it, kind of digest it, and then when I get the go ahead for the work, I talk with my art director about it, and I tell him where my head's at. I'll start sketching out some things, start looking at some inspiration the week before, and then I'll just get rolling on it. I try not to land on, like, if I see something I like, I don't start doing the colors. I don't start doing text with it. I keep going, which is my friend Nolan, who's one of my mentors, gave me that advice. He's like, just keep pushing out, ideas. Don't worry about the colors and the text and all that. Just keep pushing out ideas, and then you'll get to that spot. Like, you'll get to that later, and that's been huge for me. Because you just throw out anything. You can have 50 things on your screen, none of them work, and those are the most aggravating days. And then the next day, you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm just drawing a blank right now. But then going to chit chat with somebody about it, going for a walk, that's what I'm thinking. What do you think about this? And something will spark in your mind, and then, bam, it turns around, and then you get another idea, and then it works out. And then, so like when you look at it from the beginning and then you see it at the end, you're like, man, like there's so many different, elements you jump through. Sometimes you get to that landing spot, and then you look at it without an element, and you're like, man, that works better. And then you have more rationale behind it. And yeah, it's a really fun process. Um, it can be, there's times where it gets like scary, but I get stuck. And when I
Yeah,
get stuck, it I usually have to talk to my art director or a friend or somebody to just talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. Stop looking at stuff like inspiration, all that a long way, and new ideas will spark. Even if something that's way out there, let's try it. Um, and also looking at other agency works, like world-renowned agencies like Pentagram, and looking at what they do and seeing how it's out in the world first, opposed to just the mark itself. What, especially within the same subject matter of what the branding is, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So
What
yeah.
has there been a time where you had like a mark that you came up with and you loved it, like you were like, this is it, but
Yeah.
then whether it's like other people involved or even the client ended up going a different direction, and and you were, did it hurt losing something like that
Oh,
that you
man.
felt so good about?
Yeah, that happens all the time. I think I'm kind of numb to it at this point.
Uh, that
But
sounds extremely painful.
no, I'm not numb to it. It's like, you know, I don't look at it like, I try to look at it from their end. Sometimes when it's like a personal, like, that can get kind of annoying. It's like, but you know, that's not what it's for. It's not supposed to be like, I like it because I like, you know, it's supposed to be for the client or whoever it is. Like, that's where it's going. Um, and yeah, it hurts sometimes, but then, I do most of I mean, I do all the concepts mostly. And so even if they end up going with a different one, it's fine. But yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes it's, man, I just don't get it. But
yeah.
you could sell as much as you want, but sometimes they just, they stick to what they feel.
Right.
So
Well, I can imagine people have, everyone's got a vision in their own head at times,
yeah,
and there's certain elements that maybe they see that it's like, oh, that would really work well for this, use case.
For sure.
And you're looking at it maybe for, a different use case or just a more of a general use case.
Yeah.
And because it works so well for that, they're like, oh, we got to go with that one because
Yeah.
that's like been my dream, is to be able to use it like that, on a flag
Yes.
or on the side of a building or something
Yeah.
like that. So
Exactly. And
I,
sometimes
I
you
can
look at it.
imagine.
Oh yeah. And sometimes you look at it from their perspective. You're like, all right, that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I understand. Like, you know. So
Yeah. It
yeah.
still hurts, I can
It
imagine.
does. It does. Especially when
So
you're selling the hell out of it.
yeah.
So
What the piece for design, like logo design especially, that really seems mind-boggling for me is starting from nothing. You know what I mean? Like in video space, even in like Photoshop compositing, like you're usually starting with elements that are already exist. But whenever you're talking about logos, especially one from scratch where you have no other reference really to go on,
yeah,
that seems like almost so intimidating to me. It's like, where do you even start?
it can be. Honestly, taking the strategy and reading about the business, and really getting to know it, which I've learned to do more of, especially these last 3 years, like being at this agency. Um, really reading it at home, reading it in the morning, so then by the time you present it, you really know the material, the business as much as you possibly can, because some of them are very complex, and you have
Yeah.
a 14-day window to do 3 concepts. So that's also scary sometimes. But you also have a team behind you that's, willing to help and willing to help spark ideas and are there for you if you get, stuck in the mud or something. Um, but just getting to know the material, narrowing it down to a symbol or some type, maybe it's a reference that the owner said in the meeting, that you can take that and spark an idea off it. Well, that means, maybe I can sketch this out and maybe I can move this around because he said he liked this. And you just start from there,
Yeah.
getting to know the material and sparking ideas from the material and then start sketching it out and putting it down on vector. Yeah. So
So,
just
uh,
getting to know the material.
yeah. Well, I actually recently had an introduction, I guess, into this world, on sort of a similar level. Savannah Meek, do you know
Yeah.
her? Savvy.
Yeah. I know
Uh,
something.
so
Yeah.
she used to work at Telegraph, and
Yeah.
she's actually helping me rebrand.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I've got like a video, some freelance stuff that I do that I'm trying to invest a little bit more into, and she's
That's
helping
great.
me, yeah, establish a new brand, and I don't even know what I want to call it. I've got some
Yeah.
ideas, but she's helping me sort of conceptualize all of it and the mark and all of that. So
Great.
it's been pretty neat. She sent me like a questionnaire not long ago that sort of went through like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what's the kind of work you're doing, what's the goal, what's the emotions you want people to feel and relate to it. So
That's
it
great.
was neat to sort of see how a designer might begin that task of like, what do you want this to feel
Yeah.
like, what do you want this to embody.
Yeah.
um, but I have no experience with
Yeah.
that kind of stuff whatsoever. My logo design history that I've had to do at times has been abysmal
Yeah.
at most, and typically people end up shying away from what I end up designing pretty
Yeah.
quickly. So
Sure, it's not that bad.
it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So, but
Uh, but
okay, so
I'm
I want to
still gonna
ask
say,
this. Say that
sorry,
again.
I was gonna say Savvy's great. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
she
sure
is.
working
Yeah.
with her, she's gonna do a great job.
Yeah, she seems like she's great, and I'm not an artist at all, and but seeing her sketches, man,
Oh
her
yeah,
like doodling, even like
so good,
she's good. She's
very
really good.
talented. Hmm.
Yeah. All right. So, what's some of the best advice that you've ever been given?
Oh man, I mean, I heard this might be cliche, but I heard Kevin Durant, his mom said to him once, talent will get you there, but hard work will keep you there. That always
Yeah.
stuck with me. Yeah, that always stuck with me.
I
Uh,
can see that, especially in the creative industry. I mean, especially in what we're talking about with like logo design. I mean, I think of that. It's like somebody that can draw
yeah.
really well. Definitely, or even with your sports stuff, like being able to do the work is one thing, but to
Mhm.
be able to grow and excel in that work,
Mhm.
that's where it's going to take the hard work.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like, and I think back, like if I didn't have my work ethic, would I've gotten, better at like at the work that I have, like staying up all night and countless hours that I took to do it and not going out and like sacrificing my personal life in a little bit. Um, so like hindsight, I really appreciate it because my dad and my mom, like, my whole life, like my dad and this is with a lot of my family members, our dads, you know, they came from another country, they moved here, they were taught, you get to work, got to provide, you got to do well for yourself, do well for your family. So up until I was 14, my dad and his two brothers, they had a grocery store. So I didn't see my dad from 9 to 9, 9 to 9. Saw
Yeah.
him in the morning. I saw him before bed. It was after I was 14, he started, he worked, like a night, more of a 9 to 5. But just seeing that, not saying that that's healthy by any means,
Right.
but hindsight, they were doing what they thought was best and what they needed to do. Um, and they instilled that work ethic in us because when I turned 14, we didn't have a lot of money, so my dad was like, I'm gonna get you a job, the local grocery store. I know the guy, and he got me a job, and I haven't stopped since. And I'm like grateful that he did that. Same with my mom; she works nonstop. My sister as well. So I really appreciate that. Really.
Is there any original, like, any advice that you've given somebody or that you would give somebody that was just getting started in this space?
To listen. I know that sounds simple. Listen. Um, a lot of people say I know when you don't. You learn in my early 20s. It was always I know, I know, I know, and then you get to your 30s and you're like, no, I didn't know.
Still don't know.
Still, I'm still trying to figure it out, but just to listen, especially in the design world, not if your art director's really trying to help you, if they give you criticism on a design, don't take it personal. Just take what they say and try to make it better. Um, you got to look at it from the business, not from they're insulting you on your work, because that's not the case. It could be a great design, but they're looking at it from a business aspect. So if it needs to be reworked 8 times, you're going to get upset about it, but it's going to be for the better. And like at the end, it's usually, 100% of the time, it's for the better. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I
Just
like it.
don't take it personal. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen is such a key thing. I think I've always heard it said you have two ears and one mouth for a
Yep,
reason. You
exactly.
know,
Yeah,
so
100%.
listen twice as much as you talk. So and
Yes.
it's and also I would say, like, it sounds like you've probably experienced this to some degree. Like, surround yourself with people that are better than you.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people, and it doesn't even have to be in the same line of work,
Hmm.
but just surround yourself with people that sort of push you to be better. And I love the fact that you talk about reaching out to these people on Instagram that are younger than you.
Oh yeah,
That you see what they're doing. You're like, man, I can learn from this person.
yeah, and they're willing to help. I've learned
Yeah,
from so many people on Instagram, and I've had people DM me, and I've helped them.
yeah.
I try to give back as well. Like somebody wants to learn, or if they're looking for a position at, like somewhere, just to get a foot in the door. Like I try to help as much as I can
Yeah,
because
yeah.
people help me. you know?
Yeah, pay it forward, man, because
Exactly.
we've all received that sort of hand extended out to us to offer help before we should
Oh
extend
yeah,
it back to somebody else. So
for sure.
that's
100%.
cool. All right, so what's next, man? What's next for you? Where do you see yourself going? How long have you been at Telegraph right now?
We're gonna be 3 years, October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
where do you see yourself like professionally going? What direction? Where do you see yourself personally with your freelance stuff going, or even with just the stuff you do for like sports that is just like you growing and flexing and just having
yeah.
fun with it?
Um, my dream was to be a designer, and then I became a designer, and I was like, all right, well, what's after this? Senior designer, where you start giving a little bit of direction here and there. I never thought I would like. I thought I was just always going to be the head down, the grind out guy that can do anything you give me, any creative, any design, and be that guy to help. Kind of like that workhorse, that designer workhorse. But like the more I get into it, I'm enjoying helping people that are younger and trying to learn and everything. And I'm getting into it more. So just keep growing, And if that's art direction, like that'll be it. So yeah, just to keep growing as a designer, honestly, and and obviously getting better at my compositing work. I would love to get more work in that realm on the side. That would be great as well. So just
Yeah.
keep doing what I'm doing and see where it takes me. You know.
Nice. Nice.
So,
All right. So who inspires you? Like this is a lot of times this is a lot of times the question I ask. First of all, I want to know like and we've already touched on a lot of this. Like who is it that you look to for inspiration? You've talked already a lot about those, but who also that you work with that sort of pushes you to be better? Maybe it's them nudging you in certain directions. Maybe it's you learning from them in various ways, or maybe it's just their work. Like you see them sort of performing at a certain level, and that inspires you to sort of push to new levels in your own work.
um, man, as far as like the first person when I just as a young kid was that got me into like a specific style and art and urban art was Justin Bua. As far as like big name,
How do you spell Bua?
Bua. He was a painter. I still love his work. He doesn't post much of his
I was
work,
about
but
to say, is this him?
a lot of it's like critique. Um,
Okay, this is him though.
yeah, that's him.
Okay,
Yeah, if you can go back to his old, you can see some of his old paintings, maybe. Yeah.
let's see. I mean, I'm assuming this
Yeah,
bathroom
those-
stall, like this kind of stuff, even.
No, 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 no.
Oh
Sorry.
no, that's him critiquing
Yeah, like that one right there, that face. That's
this
some.
one.
Yeah, he did that without that background. I don't know. Somebody added that, but or maybe he did. But yeah, he would do a lot of paintings of like what he saw where he grew up in New York, like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's him right there. And yeah, it was a big influence on me. That whole style.
Okay.
Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. I
as
see
far
this.
as
He definitely has like a little bit of a consistent look to some
yeah,
of it.
oh yeah.
That stylized look.
When I was a kid, this was really big for me. Now,
Yeah.
my good friend Nolan, he was my former creative director, and our associate creative director, and Kyle, he was my former associate creative director. Um, they both really pushed me in different ways. Kyle's how clean Kyle's work is and his attention to detail uh, was really a big influence on me. I'm still good friends with both of them now. Nolan, Nolan's knowledge of design really changed the way I looked at my work and everything I do. Especially, he's an expert in regards to typography. Um, he used to have a his own studio in Baltimore, and so he has years of experience, and he has all so many books on design and art and culture that he references. Even when it comes to, let's say, I'm doing a pamphlet for a medical company, he'll bring in some magazines that he picked up from an airport that's layout is just unique and that he really liked it and it reminds him of a certain artist in the 90s that he really liked, and he'll bring it in and be like, maybe you could pull some inspiration from this. And like that the way of thinking like really motivates you and really makes you like look at the world different as well,
Yeah.
and look at design history as well, because I don't a lot of people don't look at design history, like, especially nowadays with the internet and social media, everything's fast and quick, and so that really changed the game for me. And they both definitely pushed me, to get better, and I've gotten better because of them.
There
Um,
was a Netflix series at one point that was all about like logo design. Do you remember? Have you seen that?
Abstract,
Was that what it was? Abstract?
abstract, yeah, I think so.
Yes, I think so. Abstract. Yes, yes, that was it. Man, that to me sort of did a similar thing. You said Kyle was his name?
Kyle DeMarco.
Kyle DeMarco. That's
I don't
I
know if I
just
can
had
name
him.
drop on you.
Yeah, I had him pulled up here.
Yeah,
His account, at least what's on Instagram, is a private account.
yeah,
But yeah, he calls himself a freelance art director, avid baker, and
yeah.
frequent movie watcher.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's him.
um,
Hmm.
yeah, but I'll have to definitely check out his stuff.
Yeah,
But like that abstract, I remember watching it, and so much of the stuff whenever they talked about the logo design, it was talking about like how they would go through these books that had old designs and like old
yeah.
fonts and
Oh yeah.
and they would break things down. And I think in their case they were designing new fonts in at
Hmm.
least one of those episodes. And but just the idea of studying old magazines, studying
Yes.
old print, old signage, it's a really neat way to sort of grow and learn and
Mhm.
expand, because I mean it's amazing the designs that have already taken place.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's incredible. Like those books really helped spark a lot of the ideas. I mean, especially that. That's the way I looked at it, because like a lot, Pinterest is good and looking at other places, but like, man, just grabbing an older book and seeing how the style was back in the day and seeing if you could pull something from there is huge.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I've also heard doing like urban walks is a big thing for some people, like finding inspiration in even your own local area. I mean, I think of Birmingham, and
Oh yeah.
between graffiti to
Signage.
new art
Yeah.
installations to signage, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunities to pull inspiration in those places.
Oh
Who
yeah.
you said Nolan? What was Nolan's last name?
Strales. Strals.
Is it A-N or E-N on Nolan?
Ian. Ian.
Ian. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. So I'm. Oh yeah, man. His stuff. I like it. I like it right off the bat.
Yeah.
Just sort of that. So this is what he does is mostly like graphic design.
Oh yeah. He's a creative director.
Okay.
At Lucky. Mhm.
Okay. But he did work at one point with you at Telegraph.
Yes. Yes, he
Yeah.
did. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
That's
a
cool.
big mentor of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there somebody like would one of these guys or both of these guys, or is there somebody else that you're like, man, you got to get this person on the podcast?
Um, but I mean, both of them would be great. Can't think of any other off the top of my head right
Yeah.
now. Um, yeah, those are the first two I think of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I'll have to reach out to him and connect with him in some way.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
Yeah.
But I do also want to shout out my creative director Jason at Telegraph. He's been a big help, especially when in regards to like campaign work and his like vast knowledge of the business the last 15, 20 years. So he's been a big help too.
What's Jason's last name?
Jason Martin.
Jason Martin.
Yeah, he's been in the business for a while. I don't think he has work on his page.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, all right. I think I found him. I think I'll confirm with you later to make sure this is him.
Sure.
But because it looks like for him on Instagram at least, it's just family kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah. But man, I think all of those are probably good guys to look at. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you recommending or at least mentioning them as inspiration for you. And then
Sure.
definitely I'll try to connect it. Every time I talk with somebody, it's like I find out like 3 or 4 more creatives that I didn't even know about in the area.
Yeah.
So it's been really neat doing this podcast just to see how wide and deep the creative industry
Yeah.
is in Central Alabama, Birmingham especially. It just seems like it's there's so many people creating some really incredible stuff.
Oh yeah, it's a really nice community, and you know, everybody knows of everybody in some type of way. You know,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's not a big city, but it's not a small city.
yeah.
So
It's like the 5 degrees or 8 degrees
yeah,
of bacon or whatever.
yeah. So yeah, the community is great. Yeah, and I know you had Dustin on, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I've had
Dustin,
Dustin. I had
Dustin's
Jannard.
awesome. Janelle,
Savvy, I've actually interviewed.
Jacob, Garrett.
Jacob, yeah. I just interviewed him end of last week, I think.
Yeah, Jake's
Uh,
all. I worked with Dustin and Jacob. That was my first agency job. Was with them.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
What agency was that?
Socially in.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That yeah. I remember Jacob saying that he got
yeah,
started there
yeah.
himself.
Yep. So it's
Yeah.
cool to see how far they've come too.
Well, and I've been following Dustin for a while. Like Dustin, I had a former student of mine that went on to UAB and worked with him at UAB TV,
Yeah, yeah.
and then he was like, "Dude, you got to check this guy out. He's really
That's
talented." And
sweet.
so I've been following him for a while, and it's been neat because through him, I've learned about so many other people.
Yeah.
I mean, Telegraph. Even whenever he got there, that's when I learned about Telegraph and what all
Oh
they were
yeah.
doing.
There's a lot of us. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah. Well,
Cool.
Chris, I really do appreciate you joining me today, man. I know getting up. Well, I'm assuming you had to at least get camera ready on a
Yeah, yeah.
Saturday
A
morning.
little bit, you know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My wife was like, "Do you need like some cold roller or something like that for your eyes?" I was like, "No, I'll just bag it," you know. So, but I do
That's
appreciate you. What
yeah,
was
man.
that?
I said your setup's great. I
Thank
love
you,
it.
thank you.
All looks good, and I appreciate you having me. So thank you for reaching out. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think you've got an incredible story, and I love your work, man. And I look forward
Good.
to us seeing more.
Thank you, man.